In today's video I want to have a look at the Line 6 HX Stomp XL. I've been personally playing the Helix LT for the last few years, and today I've got the chance to land this. This video will not be a full review of every feature and every detail of the HX Stomp, but what I actually want to do today is compare it to the LT and give you basically a little buyer's guide or decision help. Actually, when I decided to buy the LT, I was trying to decide between the LT and the small Stomp. So back then the Stomp XL didn't even exist. And today I want to have a look at some of the key aspects that differentiate both units and also that helped me decide or informed my decision. So let's get started with a basic overview, just the plain facts. Obviously the Stomp is a lot smaller than the LT. Basically, if we put one up on the other, if we are doing a direct size comparison, you would see that the Stomp covers pretty much the area of the foot switches down here. So that would be all but 2 foot switches over here and also the 2 rows. In terms of height, I hope that's visible. The Stomp is actually a little bit taller than the front row of the LT. The LT is angled, so the buttons are a little bit more accessible. The Stomp is also angled a little bit, but still the LT is a little bit more accessible on the front row of buttons. Also, obviously, the Stomp is a lot less on weight. The LT is much heavier. In terms of cost, the Helix LT right now, as I speak, costs about 1,000 euros, and the Stomp XL is at around 700 euros. So the Stomp has a significant price advantage, but it's also not super cheap. The Stomp does have some limitations in terms of presets, setlists. So it allows you to use one setlist. The Helix LT can store multiple setlists. I believe it's 8 setlists. One setlist has room for 127 presets. Each preset on the Helix LT has room for 8 snapshots. The HX Stomp XL actually only has 4 snapshots per preset. The little Stomp even only has 3 snapshots per preset. Looking physically on the back, a major difference is the Stomp has an external power brick, so something like this. The Helix LT has a built-in power supply. Also the LT has symmetrical XLR outputs. The Stomp XL, like the small Stomp, only has TRS outputs. In terms of sounds, of amp models, effect blocks and sound quality, both units are exactly the same. However, the Stomp has basically half the DSP power of the LT. You can almost think of this being half a Helix. The Helix has 2 lanes available that you can equip with blocks, and each lane has 1 DSP processor, and the Stomp has only 1 of those lanes, and with that also only 1 of those DSP processors. So you can use only half as much amp or effect blocks as on the Helix LT. Like I said, the quality of sounds is exactly the same. That's also why in this video there will be no sound comparison or A/B testing. That's almost pointless. I will have another video coming up on my channel where I will try to look into what can I achieve with the limited DSP power on this unit. So I will try to recreate my chord tones or what I need in a preset with just what's available on the Stomp. So if you're interested in that, make sure you are subscribed. Now that we've looked at the core differences, the technicalities, let's talk a bit about things to consider and maybe the thought process why I decided to buy the Helix LT, maybe things that would inform or influence your decision. First of all, of course, the obvious thing is the Stomp is much smaller, it's not as heavy, it's much more portable, it's also cheaper. So you might very rightfully ask the question, is the Stomp enough? Do I actually need an LT? That was exactly the question I asked myself. I tried to decide, like I said in the beginning, between the LT and the little Stomp. And I was asking the question, do I actually need the LT? Do I need to pay that much? Do I need to carry around such a big thing? And your answer to that question might be no. Maybe the Stomp is really enough for you. Maybe the Stomp is ideal for you. However, here are a few things. First of all, the external power supply on the Stomp. So if you're thinking about size, you want to throw this in your backpack or in your guitar bag and don't want to lug around the big and heavy LT, you will still have to use that external power supply or a different general purpose power supply for pedal boards. That needs to be quite strong though. And it's not just something that you have to carry around. You also should think about the fact that a power supply like this can break down. It's very unlikely that the power supply in the LT will just randomly quit its job. Of course, the cable could break, but these power cables are pretty much general purpose. You can find them almost anywhere. And if you are in a venue, a church, a gig, and a power cable like this fails, there's a good chance there's a replacement available. If this power supply fails, you're basically screwed, because this is a quite strong power supply and you can't just replace it with any general 9-volt power supply. It needs to be able to provide 3 amps, and most power supplies won't do that easily. So the power supply is something that you would need to carry as an extra, and it's a risk. It's something that could fail. A second thing to think about are the TRS outputs on the Stomp. So like I said in the first part of the video, it doesn't have the XLR outputs like the LT. These can be balanced. It says here balanced or unbalanced. So maybe you could use an adapter cable from TRS to XLR. However, it's still safer to use a DI box that gives you access to ground lift. The Helix LT actually has built-in ground lift. And if you are using the Stomp, you might actually look into something like the Daiso Pinstripe DI box, I believe it's called. That's a special DI box made for boxes like this. That thing depends a bit on your viewpoint. You might say you expect the venue, the technicians to provide the DI box for you. I would not like to rely on that, to be honest, because they might just be able to provide one input, so you only have mono, or they have a crappy DI box that has noise or that has dropouts or something like that. So at least for me, if I would use the Stomp, I would probably carry my own DI box. So again, that would be an extra item to carry. It would be extra weight, extra space, also extra cost. The next thing you should keep in mind is that the Stomp obviously doesn't have an expression pedal. That's also a personal preference thing. Maybe you don't need an expression pedal. I actually use expression for volume or for the mix control on delay. I could play a service or a gig without, but as a general solution that I play on a regular basis, I wouldn't want to miss an expression or volume pedal. So again, that would be an extra item, extra cost, extra weight, extra space. And if I list all of these things, you can maybe begin to see how, if you use just the Stomp, you would still end up with an extra power supply, an extra DI box, an extra expression pedal. You would probably want to mount these things on a mini pedal board. It might not be as big as the Helix LT. It might be not as heavy. It will probably be around the same cost or similar cost like the Helix LT. And we haven't even started to talk about the DSP limit. So if you can get a usable sound with just what's inside this box, then that's fine for you. In my experience, or from my viewpoint, I would probably add 1 or 2 other small pedals just to make up for the lack of DSP power and available blocks on this thing, which would be fine. But if I do that, I will probably end up at the same size like an LT, at the same weight, probably even higher cost. And also I end up with a system that has multiple components where something can fail, some connection cable can fail. The Helix LT, of course, is a closed system, so of course the whole thing can fail, but it's very unlikely or almost impossible that something in the signal chain internally fails. So also the LT, in a sense, is a bit more reliable. And also it's just more flexible. If you buy 1 or 2 extra pedals with the Stomp, that's what you have and you can't use anything else. With the LT, you basically have endless options. So these were really the aspects that led me to decide to buy the Helix LT. To me back then it didn't make much sense to have a Stomp and then have all these extra items and probably not save much money, probably not save much space or weight. However, I do have to make 2 or 3 distinctions here. Back then, when I decided that, I didn't really have an issue with transportation. I was getting my equipment to the church or to venues by car all the time, so I could just throw it in the back of the car and that was it. Nowadays, I walk to church by foot a lot, so transportation is a big issue for me. So while back then saving a few centimeters or inches of space or saving just a little bit of weight would not have been a priority, now maybe it is. And also, let's be honest, pedals are just fun. The Helix LT is really nice and I'm not going to sell it, but I have to say, because of the transportation issue and also because pedals are just fun, I've been toying with the idea in my head to get an additional Stomp and build basically a mini pedal board that would be more transportable and also just as a fun project. I'm not 100% decided on that yet, but it's something that's in my mind. If that would sound interesting to you, make sure you get subscribed to the channel. Alright, I hope this video was helpful for you. I hope you got valuable information out of this and it helps you decide which unit is right for you or what you need for your setup. If it was helpful, leave a like down below. Make sure to get subscribed if you are interested in videos like this. I hope you're having a fantastic day out there and I hope to see all of you in the next one. Bye!